Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I hope you get something tangible out of it. We are aware that you're giving us your 90 minutes of your time, so we'll make the most of it. At least we'll try to, right? So just a little introduction about myself. I am Gaurav Sabharwal. I'm a co-founder and heading the business for a job. I have been into business now for a little over 2 decades. Actually started at the age of 19 with my business life, and in the tech space now for about 15 years. Handled a few businesses, grown them in the past. And this topic today that we are discussing is actually very close to my heart, and I'm extremely passionate about this problem that we are solving. When I was growing business before, we see that there is a point where the business hits a glass ceiling, and hustle can only get you so far. So you got to take a step back, and you want to really understand how strategically are you going to place this problem of business growth and execute on it as well. I say that a lot of businesses, and I've been into that space myself, we run on a treadmill. So we are putting a lot of effort, we're burning a lot of sweat calories, but we are not moving ahead. And that is where a lot of businesses are, right? And a lot of leaders face this problem. So how do you make sure that businesses are aligned with the teams? Teams are not working in silos. There is momentum always to move forward, and you're able to execute on things that really matter in a business is something that we're going to touch upon today. So as an opening slide, I thought that this would be very relevant for us all to know that really only 20% of businesses are able to achieve their strategic goals. Now I'll say take a moment to let it sink in, which means there is huge amount of organization waste which is happening today. And trust me, that is something which is in our control. And if we want, we can control it, we can optimize it, we can make it better for our businesses and for our people today. So with that, I'll introduce Arvind, a close friend, someone who's helped me in my business life previously. I treat him as a business mentor myself. I'm sure that you will find something really important and relevant for you to pick in his conversation. Arvind, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Gaurav. And thanks for that lovely introduction. I have been working now somewhere or the other for the last 35 years, and I'm the business guy. Initial decade was on the business side, and then I shifted into learning and development. And through last 2.5 decades, performance has been one of the pieces where various initiatives on learning and coaching all have been tried out, and one has done that. And it has always been a challenge how to improve business performance, and that is what brought us together, me and Gaurav. And about a decade ago, we got together and we started looking at it, and eventually we figured out that okay, there needs to be something done to help businesses transform their performance as is. Today, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be trying to share the experiences and thoughts on how strategy execution can be done in a better way from a OKR perspective, through a OKR system, right? And before even I talk about OKRs, let's talk about why do even businesses fail at strategy execution, right? Now, the topmost reason, of course, is that there is a lack of sharp focus. Let me talk about it in a little more. Sharp focus means that while there are businesses which are set, so if you look at it, a startup, initially a promoter comes in, starts a business, and he has a very sharp focus. I want to do this, and gets a little bit of success. And then, of course, he runs into some challenges. Then they jump around and figure out and what all we can do. And somewhere the distraction starts happening. If you're already into a established business, a medium-sized business or a large-sized business, then the leaders have too many things to be done. But what is that one thing, two things, three things that they need to push through to get the business to the next level is something which they fail to focus on. So if you fail as a business leader to focus on what it is that you and your teams need to do, then one will fail at execution. One cannot do uh, too many things at the same time. I'm reminded of a quote which my mentor used to always share, a phrase rather, the headless chicken syndrome. So we do a lot of stuff, but if the focus is not there, we end up in the headless chicken syndrome. Uh, Lack of focus, of course, a very big contributor to failure of strategy execution. The other part is confusion between activity and action. Like I said, I've been into L&D space now for more than 2 decades, and I've been as a business consultant. No, any organization you go to, any cultural place you go to, any professional you talk to, they always talk about this pain of too much work and too less time. And there's a whole talk about work-life balance going haywire. However, if you talk to the business leaders, they're saying, hey, you know what we want to get done is not happening. So that's a dichotomy. While the employees are saying they are working too much, there's a lot of activity happening, but the business is not happening, right? And where the confusion is that activity gets confused with action. Action is something which brings you the outcome. At the end of it, an action should result in an outcome. If you take an action, there has to be a result. But if you do an activity, it may not have. So let me give you an example from an HR perspective. I've been part of HR. So HR's one of the goals is to engage employees. And one of the activities they will do for engaging employees is to celebrate occasions. So they may have a Rangoli happening. They may have a Diwali celebration happening. Now Christmas is coming up. Many organizations will gear up with red caps and all that. So the activity will happen. But is that resulting in an outcome of employee engagement? That is something missing. So businesses should not confuse activity with action. Action has to be an outcome-oriented action. And that brings me to the next failure which happens in strategy execution is linking the action to business strategy. While you may have action which brings up some results, but are those results synced up with business strategy, right? So almost all businesses, if you talk to any business leader, do you have a strategy? Of course, the answer will come, yeah, we have a strategy, right? It may not be written down somewhere. We have a strategy. And some businesses will go, yeah, we wrote it down. We have an annual strategy meet in which we create the strategy. But is that strategy being brought to the operation floor, right? Is the action being taken by the employee this month in line with pushing that strategy to the next level? Forget the month. What about this week? What about today? The employees which do something today, is that moving the needle? In fact, in a recent, last month, we were doing an initiative for a startup. It's an established startup with about 1,200 people. And one of the values which came up was move the needle every day. And one of the leaders then said something very interesting. We might be moving the needle every day, but are we moving the needle in line with the business strategy? Right? We are doing things. Things are moving, things are happening, but are they happening in line with the strategy? Because if they're not happening in line with the business strategy, you may get something, but it may not be what you want, right? So strategy execution fails if you're not able to link action with business strategy. At a third level of failure, invariably, leaders find it difficult to create ownership for results. Through my two and a half decades as an L&D leader, I have met CEOs, and one of the things invariably each CEO says, hey, you know what? I know what results I want. I've given the work to my teams. The teams know what work they have to be done, what has to be done, but they don't take ownership for the results that they have to achieve, right? It is like saying, hey, you know what? I'm doing my part. So I did what I was supposed to do. If things did not happen, it's because some other department also needed to do, but they have not done it, right? And if most of you are from corporates or from businesses, reflect upon the monthly review meetings which happen, and you're asking somebody, hey, why did this not happen? And say somebody will for sure come up and say, hey, you know what? I was given this, I had these resources, I did this, this is what could be done. If it has not happened, it is because these reasons. And if you ask the next question, that if you were looking at it and seeing that it will not happen, why you did not raise it earlier? And they will not have any answer. The ownership for results is something which lacks. Now, a lot of times organizations, CEOs talk to me and talk about, hey, there is an attitude of ownership which needs to be looked at. Fine, we will do that. In fact, this weekend I'm traveling to Barmer in Rajasthan, talking to a project teams of it's a 5,000 crore big project, and one of the issues there is the same thing: ownership for results, right? So while we can look at skills, while we can look at attitude, but there has to be a system which enables the ownership to happen. What I'm trying to say is, if you're dependent on people and just the people to have the ownership happening, then it's going to fail. It's not, people are not, machines. They are not superhumans. They are humans. They will make errors. But can you have a system? Can there be a process in place which itself encourages ownership, which itself actually promotes ownership, or rather it processizes the ownership? If a process can be put in place, if a system can be put in place, that will help strategy execution in a big, big way. Another reason, fourth reason why strategy execution fails is that most organizations, most businesses look at reviews from a reactive perspective. There's a tracking mechanism for sure. There are KPIs and there are monthly reviews, quarterly reviews, but they are reactive in nature. When a review happens, first of all, one night before the review, the whole team will spend hours trying to prepare for a presentation for the review. There's a one day before that presentation, everybody is so caught up into what needs to be prepared for that presentation, because and the first goal is save my back. They don't want anybody to be held accountable from their team. And then they're trying to figure out that why things did not happen and what can we say why it did not happen. It's more reactive. It's more post-mortem. We have KPIs at the end of the year. There are appraisals which happen, and I'll talk more about the appraisal side when I talk about the OKR story. But they are also post-mortems. Why you did not do what you did not do. Businesses need a proactive system where you can proactively look at, how can you go about doing what you're supposed to be doing? How do you get the results that you are doing? Not at the end of the year, not at the end of the quarter, not at the end of the month, today, next week. Can I track the action that is happening, and can we enable the corrective actions that have to be taken? And that's the other piece, the fourth piece, which needs to be tackled. Of course, the fifth piece is that, so we talked about lack of sharp focus, confusing activity with action, failure to link action with business strategy, finding it difficult to create ownership, reactive, not proactive. And a system that enables to overcome all these challenges is OKRs. So far, I have talked about why strategy execution fails. If any thought or a question crops up in your mind, feel free to put it in your chat. If a query is there, please feel free to use the Q&A box and put a question there. We will reply to that during the webinar. If we don't get the time in the webinar, after the webinar, we will get back to you. Of course, do share your email ID so that we are able to get back to you. I'm not sure how many of us know OKRs, are well versed with OKRs. OKRs have an interesting journey over the last so many years. It's not a new concept, though it is catching on now very much. This all started somewhere way back in Intel with Andy Grove, one of the leaders of Intel, where he started looking at objectives and then started looking at the key results that are required to be achieved for those objectives. And he published a book called High Output Management. John Doerr, who used to work with Andy at Intel, when he moved from Intel and he moved to as an investor into Google. Google at that time was operating out of a small office space above a garage. And when he went there, he took the whole concept of OKRs to Google, and Google adopted OKRs. Of course, Google became Google. And because Google became Google, over the next decade, a lot of interest was generated on OKRs, and a lot of Silicon Valley businesses started embracing OKRs. While this was happening, other organizations, other industries started looking at it and said, hey, you know what, if they can grow big using OKRs, why can't OKRs work for us? Also, parallelly, what happened over the next decade, somewhere around 2015, 2018, is organizations started getting fed up with the performance management systems they had. So balanced scorecard and KPIs worked very well. But beyond a time, that bell curve they used to create started creating more problems for them than solving the problems for performance. So they wanted to move away from that, to moving away from bell curve and moving away from that whole appraisal process system for performance. They moved from annual appraisals to half-yearly appraisals, from half-yearly appraisals to quarterly feedback, and they tried all that. And as they were trying that, they found that the OKR way of working, the OKR system itself, actually solved a lot of those issues around the performance management. And hence, adoption of OKRs as a system started increasing. Companies like Google, Schneider, Intuit, BMW, Whole Foods, the Gates Foundation actually uses OKRs in a big way. Globally, companies used it, and now even in India, there are many companies, there are pharma giants, there are manufacturing giants, automotive guys, of course, the tech startups, they all are interested in using OKRs. Post-pandemic, as businesses struggle with multiple challenges to get back into the groove, to increase their business performance, there's too much happening, too many things to be done, and to get a clarity on that, and to get a sharp focus on that, on what they need to do, OKRs have worked very well. But having known OKRs and having worked with this, there are a lot of businesses still struggling to understand what are OKRs and struggling to implement OKRs. So let's spend a little time on understanding what are OKRs. OKR stand for objective and key results, of course, right? Objective is what is to be achieved. And in the OKR setup, in the OKR way of working, objectives are inspirational objectives. They are concrete, they are significant, something which will transform the business, right? And when people read an objective, they should feel excited, right? You use the objectives you create the objectives in a way that it excites the employees, it excites the teams. Oh, wow, we are doing this big thing. And then you don't leave them in the air. You don't then leave them just like that, okay, I've given you a big objective, now you think about what needs to be done. No, you help them, you help the teams set up key results. What are the key results you want to achieve to get to those objectives? Now, mind you, key results will be very specific, time-bound, aggressive, and realistic. And while at business level, when you set up the OKRs, they are, so what you are looking at is you are thinking about what are the strategic moves, and hence over the next 1 year, what are the objectives and the key results as a business we want to get done. But when it goes to the team levels, the focus shifts from 1 year to just about 90 days, the quarter. What is the team going to get done in the next 90 days? And when I say get done, it means what the outcomes they are going to get in the next 90 days, not what the activity they will do or action they will do. No, it's the outcomes they will get in the next 90 days. So there's a focus which comes in next 90 days. We are living here next 90 days. What are the outcomes we are going to get? Of course, those outcomes are in sync with the business OKRs, which are in sync with the strategic moves they are trying to do, right? And it is not left at that. In a system which is job, which we Gaurav lovingly calls it OKR++, right? We even look at the actions, the critical actions that are required to be taken over the next week or 10 days to get those 90 days outcomes in place. So it's a very sharp focus for the teams, which happens. When we put OKR system in place, businesses and organizations benefit a lot. For smaller setups, startups which is just small and just started, it helps put people in the same direction. It helps pull the people in the same direction. Structure of OKRs provides a yardstick for business success. So if you are a startup, if you're a small company, what is success? It's very sometimes debatable. I was talking to a small SME couple of weeks back, and they are at around 50 crores. So he was trying to define success. So success should be 70 crores next year, or 100 crores next year, or 120 crores. It's very difficult to put a success yardstick. But when you create the OKRs, they create a very specific yardstick for the business. What is success? And they are able to address the strategic priorities. So for a startup, it helps them create a structure. So whether you are a startup which has got the funding, or you are a startup which is looking forward to funding, it provides a very good structure to provide to the financial backers how the business is going to be happening. It's not up in the air. It's not on the mood of the promoters. There's a structure. For medium-sized businesses, OKRs are a shared language for execution. They clarify expectations. It keeps everybody aligned vertically as well as cross-functionally. And it provides answer to the questions that what do we need to get done and who is working on it. Many a times people when does the consulting part, one come across the leaders, the top leaders, the CEOs, and the function heads, and they say, oh yeah, we are doing this. And if you check who is doing it, they take a bit of time to figure out who is actually doing that job, right? It does provide a guide for collaborative and aligned execution. It enables measurement of progress, helps becoming a proactive organization. Like I said earlier, are you a reactive organization or are you a proactive organization? For large organizations, OKRs act as neon-lit road signs. So it tells everybody in the organization which direction to move. And it helps demolish the silos. In my 35 years of working, I have not come across any CEO who has not talked about this issue of silo working, right? It's there because of the organization structures. It's there because of the human nature, whatever you may call it. But the silo working is always there. The moment you switch to an OKR way of working, you cannot work in silos. It will go across functions. So there's a lot of cross-functional collaboration, and it cultivates connection even in far-flung contributors. As long as that person is connected to that key result, the person will get involved, right? And it provides fresh solutions by enabling frontline autonomy. OKRs, when you set up OKRs, they are a top-down thing because the strategy, business objectives, team objectives, but it's also a bottom-up thing in terms of how are we going to get to those objectives? What are the results we will deliver to get to those objectives? So it's a very top-down and a bottom-up kind of an approach which happens. And that is what enables organizations to even achieve more and more, even for established organizations. So when I took the names earlier of a BMW or a Gates Foundation, the reason they are adopting OKRs is because it helps them perform more. OKRs is a system for strategy execution to achieve business transformation, right? If there are any questions that are cropping up in your minds, please feel free to put it in chat or in the Q&A box. We will get back to you. Having known that OKRs are there and a lot of help comes across when you implement OKRs, organizations still hesitate, or when they adopt OKRs, they still fail at it. In our experience, these are the reasons why they fail at it. And these reasons have come across from the experience CXOs at Job and Cresco have looked at. We are a group of CXOs who bring in all this study and solutions to industries. And in our experience, those are the 6 reasons. Of course, starts with lack of leadership commitment. A lot of times a leader will go, we have examples of leaders going to US or some conference, hear about OKRs, get very fascinated with it, come back and tell their organization, let's implement OKRs. But the commitment is not there. I mean, it's another thing which needs to be ticked away, right? There is a lack of clarity a lot of times. Lack of clarity means, do you have a clear strategy in place? If you do not have a clear strategy in place, then you won't be obviously able to implement that strategy. So for you to be implement or execute that strategy, you need to have a clarity of strategy, clarity and same understanding amongst the top team. So if there is a business and there's a management team of 7 people or 8 people, if I talk to each one of them, will they come up with the same answer that yes, this is the strategy, right? If they cannot, if they do not, then the strategy is not cleared up. Then you move to the next level, the managers or the teams which are executing that strategy. Ask them, what do they understand about strategy? My guess is if you are a medium size or a large size organization, or even a small organization for that matter, and if I go to the managerial level or a front end level and ask them, how are you executing strategy? He's going to turn around and say, what strategy? He doesn't know what strategy we are trying to push, because that clarity is not there. That communication is not there. And if that is not there, then framing of OKRs fails. OKRs need to be framed correctly. OKR is a system. Job is an engine which enables that system to work. But like any technology, it is garbage in, garbage out, right? If you do not frame the OKRs correctly, you will fail at using OKRs. And if once you have done the framing of OKRs correctly, then there has to be a tool to record and track OKRs, which is where the job comes in. We need a very good tool to record and track and take action on OKRs. At a later stage, when we get introduced to job, we will come to know how user-friendly job is to do this. Another aspect which organizations fail to recognize and take action on is training teams on OKRs. See, OKRs is a different way of setting up objectives and key results. Key results are not what I can do. Key results is not what's the action I will get done. No, key results is about outcomes. So OKRs are very outcome oriented, and there's a training required for how to set OKRs. Of course, you don't need a continuous training. You need to be trained on it once, but that first level, first time training is required. And when we talk about training on OKRs, on business goals, objectives, key results, a lot of times top level leaders say, yeah, my managers need to be trained. Well, here's a caution. Even the top leaders will need to be trained on how to set the OKRs, right? And they need to learn. It's a little different. Okay, not a little different. That's a wrong statement. It's a very different way of setting up key results. And OKRs is about change in the way of working. Silos are going to be broken, cross-functional collaboration will happen, transparency will come in, everybody will get to know how people are working, why they are doing, what they are doing, where I will get support from, how the check-ins are going to be done. All of that will happen. And it's a change. While if you implement OKRs in the right way, that itself will bring in a change in the culture. But one needs to recognize that, and one needs to be aware that this is a change. And hence, the entire communication from the start itself needs to be around the theme that we are going to change the way we are working. It's not just another fad that we are acquiring, another flavor of the month that we're going to try, OKRs. No, there's a change in working that is going to come. Again, I would say, if you have questions, any questions around any of this, do put it up in your chat or the Q&A box. I can see some questions in the chat and the Q&A box. We'll try to answer them at the end of the webinar. If we are not able to answer at the end of the webinar, we'll definitely get back to you. So how do organizations go about making strategy work through OKRs? The first thing is create the right OKRs. And for that, take consulting support, right? You need some expert on OKRs to come in and help you how to set the OKRs and actually set the OKRs. Not only teach you how to set the OKRs, to actually set the OKRs. And the setting up of OKR starts with a discussion on what is the strategy, and then link it with the business level and team level OKRs. The second thing you will need to do is you will need to do training right from the top, right up to the teams involved in OKRs. Because remember, OKR is about a culture change. So you will need to do planning and executing mindset, collaborative, or open way of working. Uh, Training is also on how to set OKRs, right? So while the consulting part is about actually helping you set the OKRs, but the training part is also about how do you set OKRs so that you are able to sustain it once you start with it. And of course, then you need a tool, a world-class tool on tracking and working with OKRs, which helps you connect the entire story, entire journey, right from strategy to objectives, KRs, business level, team level, individual level, uh, action, tracking the action on OKRs. So it's the entire piece which will have to be handled through that platform. OKRs are not something which you can tackle through Excel sheets. OKRs are not something which you can tackle through an HRMS, which helps you put up KPIs. OKR is not something which you can tackle through a very poorly made tool included in some HRMS, because there's been talk of OKRs. So HRMS includes a tool on OKRs also. It will not happen. You need a very specialized tool to track, monitor, take action on OKRs. Yeah. The process which we follow, which we recommend, and which we provide for OKR implementation is shown through this roadmap. And whether you use this roadmap, I mean, whether you do it through us or through anybody, as long as you are using this roadmap, it works. It starts with organization strategy. So there has to be a discussion, a session, a detailed session which happens on organization strategy. This would involve the CXOs and the founders for the startup. For big organization, it will include the CEO and maybe a couple of his key leaders at the top who are involved in organization strategy. And we talk about clarifying the strategy. We talk about what are the big moves that are required over the next 1 or 2 years. And we create a playbook of how the OKRs will be run through the organization. And once that is done, then we look at business level OKRs. This requires a couple of sessions again with the CXOs, but this time also with probably departmental heads and the top line leadership. And there again, we talk about here the consulting plus the training happens. So throughout these sessions, both things happen. Training from a perspective of how the OKRs are to be set, consulting from the perspective of actually looking at strategy and figuring out what are the best OKRs to be set at a business level. And once the business level OKRs are done, then we trickle down to the team level OKRs. So teams, depending on the size of the organizations, we make teams, groups of teams, maybe 20 people in a session, but teams have to be trained on how to set OKRs. Teams at this juncture will also have to be communicated on what is the strategy and what's the business level OKRs, and then come into the team OKRs, right? And teams take time, their own time to set up their OKRs. They need consultant help. They need training help. Once that is done, then we look at check-ins. Check-in is the heartbeat of OKRs. Organizations which are already following the agile model do some kind of agile check-in, but the OKR check-in or the job check-in, if I may say so, is very, very different, is very specific. It makes the check-in, it makes the review more action-oriented and decision-oriented. And the whole focus is on how will we get the result that we expect in this quarter. How do we get that result? The idea is not about, hey, why you did not do this? The whole idea is about how can we enable you to get the results that are required for us. And then towards the end of the first quarter of running with OKRs with job provides deep insight into how did your OKR cycle go, what did go well, what did not go well, how it can be different the next quarter. So that's the whole process. But in this whole process, what we also add on is OKR champion or a job champion certification. Uh, so we create in-house ability in the organization to handle OKRs. So this whole OKR champion certification is a separate coaching and certification on the entire OKR system as a system. And the idea being that every organization should be able to sustain usage of OKRs by themselves, right? They should not be able to, they should not require to be dependent on external consulting. This process, though shown in one single slide, is a very detailed process, and it requires a lot of involvement. And that is where the part of leadership commitment comes in. Are the leaders committed to really invest in the effort? And sometimes when leaders ask that question, that should we be committed, I ask, are you looking at business transformation? So OKRs is for teams. OKRs is for businesses which are looking at transforming their performance. And that's the piece. And in a bigger organization, the organization may not adopt OKR, but a team may adopt OKRs. That is also possible. That is also done. So while John Doerr set about in his book is called Measure What Matters. And he set about defining OKRs and how they should be done. But over the decades, OKRs have taken a life of their own. And a lot of changes have been done. A lot of businesses have successfully experimented with different ways of implementing OKRs. And this is what I wanted to share with you on why OKRs work or how OKRs can work to implement strategy. Happy to answer all the questions. What I want to do is I want to invite Gaurav now back. Like Gaurav introduced himself, Gaurav has been in business for more than 2 decades. And last decade or so, or a little more than that, he's been on the technology side. He has had multiple startups, and he understands business growth and business performance. And he would be the best person to talk about how job helps put all of this in place and helps you implement OKRs. Gaurav, over to you.
Thank you, Arvind. Thanks for your time. I think there needs to be a slide which talks about the job wheel. Yes. Thanks, Arvind. Thanks for your time and setting up the context of how we make strategy execution tangible, right? So friends, I just want to take a few minutes and make you understand that how can you make this work, right? We don't want to leave you with a philosophy and just and make it real for you guys so that you can go ahead, try to implement that in your business with your leadership and make the transformation and bring in the change which your business may be needed. So with this, what we call it as a job, we start with setting up the direction. Now, direction is again something which Arvind spoke a little about on the whole strategy part, on the old OKR part. And how do you take that direction, cascade it down, not just vertically, but horizontally in your organization as well? And that is where the whole alignment piece comes up. Something that we have made very visual, easy for people to understand and cascade down, and even horizontal in the organization. The magic happens with the execution, right? So a lot of times consultants or consulting companies tend to drop the ball with the first 2 pillars that we spoke about. But unless it's executed, nothing moves or nothing shifts, right? So how do you enable that execution is what we have done quite effectively through the platform job, something that we will just show you after. While we all do this, we still want to be sure that people are at the end center of the stage. Nothing moves the needle, no technology helps unless you have a buy-in from people. So how do you make sure that people are enabled, they are bought into, and something that helps them through their execution journey is something that we have solved with job as well. All of this creates a lot of data. We want to make sure that you get data in the way that you can understand it and base your business people decisions on that. So that's what the insight section does on our platform. So AK, if you would like to pick some few questions up and answer them for the audience, I think we can maybe get done 15 minutes prior and save that time so that people can just have a relaxed cup of coffee and get back to their work.
Yep, that's true. So I see some questions, and so one of questions is talking about OKRs, starting OKRs with a small team, and there was another question: how big a team, minimum team size should it be? So I'll answer that first. We need to understand that OKRs are for transforming the business. So if I'm going to look at business growth and transforming the business growth, then whatever teams are involved in the business growth should get involved in the OKRs. So whether it's a small team or a big team, it doesn't matter. When we start implementing OKRs, we organize and we schedule accordingly, right? The only thing is, yes, if it's a big team you're talking about, it will take you more time to implement the OKRs for all the teams. If it's a smaller team, by the way, this whole definition of small and big also is very relative. What is small? So once I was talking to one of the guys, he said, "Oh, we are a very small startup. We are only 1,000 people." So I said, "Okay, fine, thank you." So small, big is a very relative term, but one can go about. I have seen that in very large organizations. So let's say if I talk about Vocart or if I talk about other companies, when they implement there, they pick up a department first. So they still have to go through the organization level OKRs, and then they look at that particular team, and then they try to put the OKRs. But when you are implementing OKRs or creating OKRs, remember it will be cross-functional. So you don't figure out, don't look at what department I'm going to include. You look at what key result are we going to focus at, and whoever is involved in getting that key result done gets involved in the OKR implementation. I hope I have been able to answer that question.
Yeah, let me just add to that, AK, and I think the question somewhere said that can we do it organization wide, or we need to choose a team for, or can we just do it for a team? And I think it also depends on what is the outcome that you need, and why are you even choosing going in this direction, right? If if the outcome is that you want to make the whole organization focus on few things and then cascade it down into your different teams, who can then pick those parts up, and the submission of those parts move the needle on the organization level objectives that you have kept, then my suggestion would be look at the whole organization at it. Now, if you want to just do a pilot within one team and the team is substantial, big enough so that there are different moving parts in that team and people are performing different roles in that team, and you want to align that team to work towards a common goal or common objective that you have kept for that particular team, then absolutely, we have seen many instances where they have gone ahead, piloted with the team, implemented the product, seen the movement there, and then become an advocate for other teams to follow or organization to follow as a whole. So those are my 2 cents on this.
Great, Gaurav. Thanks a lot. Thanks for that. I hope that those questions have got answered in terms of what teams and numbers should get involved. How long does it take OKRs to implement? My guess is that if you're talking about business level OKRs, it takes about a week to get there. And then the next level in terms of teams, anything between another week and 10 days. So in about 2 to 3 weeks, you should be up and running with OKRs. But that is dependent on the commitment organization has in terms of investing time and energy on OKRs. And the moment that has, 2 to 3 weeks. Otherwise, we have seen organizations go about 4 to 6 weeks just to set up OKRs and get it done. I would recommend don't focus on hurrying the pace, but focus on getting it done correctly. Because once you get it done correctly, then it becomes part of your life. Then the next OKR cycle, you probably will finish off in 1 week, right? It's the first time that it takes time to get trained, to get the mindset, to change the culture. The first time around, it takes a few weeks to get it done. Well, I hope, I can't see the name who put that question, but I hope your question gets answered.
And again, to extend on what AK you just said, while the OKR implementation can be done in 3 to 4 weeks, or depending on the size of the organization, a little more, the implementation of job happens in 1 day. So the whole integration within the job platform is extremely simple. We have playbooks that we have created, and our customer success team will handhold you through that process. So getting onto a platform like Job and starting that journey can happen in 1 day or a few hours. So yeah.
Absolutely. And to that extent, I think, Gaurav, I must say that while one has looked at all sorts of HRMS systems in 30 years, right from the most advanced ones to the new trendy ones, I think the user interface of Job is phenomenal. Very, very exciting and very, very interesting to use. And it lives up to the whole name of Job, joy of performing. So that's very great.
Yeah, thank you, AK, for pointing that out, and appreciate it with all humility. But that was, that was the intention. I think sometimes we tend to overcomplicate technology and the use of it, and it becomes counterproductive, right? Because at the end of the day, the users have too many things to do. So if we take too much of their time with updating and adding one more things on their shoulder, it doesn't go well with the users, right? So that was the whole intention. And today, we're getting some great feedback. People are coming who've used various other platforms before, and getting onto Job and really loving the simplicity and the whole user experience of it. And I'm not sure if this was mentioned before or not, but we are actually one of the few companies who've given the power of using OKRs and strategy execution on your hand, right? So we've gone ahead, made it mobile live so that people can use it on the go, do updates on their KRs, do check-ins where they are, and give each other feedback as and when they need to do that. So all of that can happen on on a mobile platform as well today.
Right. Absolutely right. Fair enough. I see, Vibha, you had typed your question chat, and thanks for typing it out in the Q&A box. Thank you very much. The question is, how do OKRs differ or align at departmental levels within an organization? What if definition of success varies? See, again, look at OKRs not as a functional or a bucket kind of a thing. OKRs is for the whole business. So there's a strategy. That strategy demands, or that strategy sort of leads to creation of objectives and key results for the business at a business level. Having looked at a business level, then you go to the teams that, hey, these are the objectives and key results of the business. Now, what are the KRs that you are going to contribute to, and what are the outcomes you're going to look at in the next 90 days, which will help us achieve these business level OKRs. So let me give you an example. Let's say a company says we are going to get into a new customer segment, and we want $1 million revenue from that customer segment, right? Now, for getting that done, you will have to make, probably depending on the business, there might be some product changes which are required to be done. So the product team will have to work on it. There might be a sales position or a sales team which needs to be created to cater to that new segment. Today, the organization may not be catering to that new segment. So there's a sales team which has to be hired, right? So that becomes a sort of a job for HR to come into and look at it. And then there might be pricing to be done for the new customer segment. So who will decide on the pricing? So somebody has to get into and look at who is the pricing. It could be the marketing team who does the pricing, or the product team, or the pricing team if they have a pricing team separately. So pricing will have to be done. Then to cater to that, or to get to that customer segment, how do we do the positioning for that segment? So the marketing team will have to look at marketing messaging, marketing positioning, whether it's going to be digital marketing or whether it is going to be point of sale marketing, depending on the product. So the marketing team will have to get into looking at the new segment. And then, of course, first of all, in fact, to start all this cycle, there has to be somebody looking into customer need. And a position I learned from Gaurav is the customer success team, we call it. So there has to be somebody looking into what does this new customer segment actually require, from a perspective. So all these things. So the objective is one, getting into the new customer segment. But the key results that are coming out of it are for the product team, or for the HR team, or for the pricing, for the marketing team, customer success team. And these teams will have to then define what are the outcomes they are looking at getting done in the next 90 days to get the overall OKR of new customer segment. And then somebody has to look at the robustness of the whole OKR design. That if their HR is saying, I will hire in the next 45 days, is that going to help achieve the $1 million result or not? Right? If it is not going to do that, then that whole key result of HR to hire in 45 days needs to be relooked at. Otherwise, that organization level objective or the KR will not get achieved. So it's a very integrated piece which happens. So it's not a question of different departments having different results or key results. In fact, all departments will need to come together to achieve that business key result, and then look at what their role will be and how they need the support from the other people, and how all of that will work. So it's a very integrated way of working. The moment you shift to OKRs as a system, as a performance level, the entire organization works like one organism. It's like a one body. It's the heart working together with the brain, with the muscles, with the bones, with the hands, with the feet, everything working as one organism, right? And that's how the OKRs help succeed. I hope, Vibha, I've answered that question. If there is anything add on, please let me know. Right? So the success levels are defined by the organization level OKRs. What is that? And for that, what needs to be get done, right? Rehan, you are asking a question, very interesting one. How do I make sure my team sticks to our OKRs? Well, let me give it in two ways. One, of course, an obvious way is that there is a check-in which happens. So there's a whole, like I said during my session, that the heartbeat of OKRs is the check-ins. The way you do the check-ins, how do you do the check-ins? And during the check-ins, you figure out where it goes. Job provides a beautiful way of measuring the confidence level. What is the confidence level of the team involved in achieving that key result, right? And that itself gives you an indication whether we are going. So it is not about my team sticking to their OKRs. It's about the organization achieving the key results. So if the team is lagging behind or is not able to do something, so in check-in itself, you're trying to figure out what is stopping you and then helping them out. Maybe the team is overloaded, right? They need more hands, or maybe there is some work dumped on the team, which is not a priority. And they have taken it that it's their priority. And that clarification starts happening. Okay, boss, that is not your priority. This is the priority. Please work on this. And that's where the OKR system helps. While that is one way to get it done, another thing which I find beautifully done through Job is that when you are doing check-in, so in Job, what happens is everybody's OKRs, KRs are known to everybody, and everybody can see what everybody is doing. So if one manager is working on his KRs and another manager is working on her KRs, they both know what action is happening, what they're doing. And automatically there is a peer pressure or a peer expectation that, boss, this is what I'm supposed to do for my colleagues. I need to be able to do that because it is seen very much. There's no hiding behind anything. In Job and OKR system, you can't hide. It is visible. It is very clearly visible that, this is what I'm supposed to do. I did it or I did not do it. If I did not do it, I'm putting it up. Why I could not do it? Please help me to do it. All of that creates that whole piece, that transparency of performance happens. That's where I said it's a very cultural shift in the way of working. There's one dialogue which was made very popular in a Hindi movie: "My business is my business, none of your business." Job works exactly the opposite side. The OKRs work exactly. Business is business. It's everybody's business, and everybody's contributing. We will all succeed together, right? If the business fails, we all fail. So that's the challenge, and that's where one looks at that. It's not a question of my team sticking to the OKRs. It's a question of how do I help my team achieve its key results, and where do they reach out that, okay, I tried this, I talked to these guys, it did not work out, I don't know what to do. And then everybody comes around and helps them. Okay, here is probably what you can try. Yeah.
Arvind, there was another question that I think we accidentally missed by Neha. She's asking if there are systems which can help to build and manage a relationship between OKR and project management systems like Scrum.
So can OKRs help you manage projects and align with Scrum? For sure. Whether you're following Scrum or whatever, eventually what you're looking at is what results are you looking, what outcomes are you looking at it. See, project planning is project planning and project execution. But what results are you looking at it from there? That's what you put in your OKRs, and that's what you handle through OKRs. But yeah, they can be married. It's a consulting piece which needs to be done, but it can be done. Gaurav, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think somewhere I read the question as also, can you work with OKRs on a project management tool? And I mean, my experience with OKRs and strategy execution tells me that you cannot, just because when you are looking at projects, you're looking at, again, a silo piece of the business for that particular project, right? And project can change depending on what is the outcome you need from the business at that point of time. So I think OKRs are a higher up level than just projects. And what you want to do is you want to be extremely focused on the number of objectives or KRs that you are chasing on an organization level or a team level, and you bring about the momentum on those KRs. Because sometimes, it can be diluted if you put too many of them, and then it looks like a project management. So I think those are my few cents on it. Now, Arvind, I do have a surprise. Since we have 10 more minutes, I want to get into a rapid fire with you. And I have about 4 or 5 questions that I would like to ask you. And hopefully it will also give some context to the audience,
Go ahead.
those questions. So whenever you are ready, we like to throw in surprises and have some fun during it. So whenever you're ready, I can start. Or if there are any other questions, Nishita, we need to first
A couple of questions. Let me answer them quickly, and then we'll get into the rapid fire. One question is, what kind of goal should get into OKRs? Is there a wrong way to do it? Goals or the objectives would depend on business strategy and business objectives. So anything that is leading to execution of that strategy, success of that strategy, is what is OKRs is all about. Is there a wrong way of doing it? Well, there are multiple wrong ways of doing OKRs, and there can be a separate 3-hour session on how 101 ways of not doing OKRs. And that is why it's very, what I can say, essential that, you do the OKRs in the right way. So it's always any system works like a system, garbage in, garbage out. So if you put it the right way, it works well. But when done correctly, it works wonders. Very quickly.
Sorry, whenever you're done.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, sometimes you don't even need to overthink it. I know the whole ego, and I am a big believer of that. But at the same time, when you're driving in the dark, you can only see 10 feet, even with your headlights on. But you've got to travel that road 10 feet for you to see more. So I think that's how business works. That's how life works. So you need to take that leap of faith. You need to have a commitment that you are going to make that change for your business and for your people. And if you're committed about it, no matter mistakes you do during that journey, but you will finally get to your destination, right? And I think that's what I believe in.
There's a question which says, how should one treat performance appraisal and OKRs separately, or tendency to treat them as one? There is a tendency to treat them as one. However, KPIs and performance appraisals are separate. OKRs are separate. How do you manage all of that is dependent on how the organization is structured, what is the culture, and what do you want to do with OKRs. But yes, OKRs can be embedded into the performance appraisal. There are different ways of doing it, and it will take more time to answer that. So whoever, I don't see the name here who has put that question, please reach out to us. We can actually give you a detailed piece dependent on your organization situation. But yes, KPIs, OKRs can be combined, and Job has a wonderful way of doing that. And we can explain to you how that can be done.
Thank you.
Okay, Gaurav, we can go on to your rapid fire now.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, AK, you've handled much more pressure than this before.
Okay.
So Arvind, the first question goes, what is the size of the company that you think OKR work with? Is there a minimum size that you think OKRs are useful for?
Yeah, there has to be at least one person in the company. Any company, any business which is looking at making business happen, OKRs is for that business.
Right. So you don't think there is any minimum per se?
No.
Okay, great. And do you think this is bottom up or top down? What do you think works better?
It starts top down, but it works phenomenally well when you actually integrate the bottom up approach also. So you look at the strategy, which is top down. You look at organization level OKRs, which are top down. But after that, leave the teams to understand OKRs and frame their own OKRs. And you'll be surprised at what level of outcomes they come up with.
Got it. Now, how many cycles of quarters one needs to spend in the OKR system before they can see any kind of results, business results?
Typically, by the end of second quarter, you start seeing the change. But if done correctly, even the first quarter will throw up phenomenal insights into how the business can do better. And some results starts happening in the first piece itself. The key is implementing it correctly. But yes, by the second quarter, for sure, the change starts happening.
Sure. Now, strategy execution has many different philosophies and many different ways of doing it as well. Balanced scorecard being one of the more popular ones in the past. So what do you think? Is balanced scorecard relevant today and is the right way to go forward? Or do you think OKR has taken over? What do you think are the differences and why one should choose and which philosophy to go forward with?
See, balanced scorecard came up with the whole, cropped up with the whole piece of that people did not know how to go about doing business. And the balanced scorecard was one of the first sciences or systems to come up. And it's very effective. Even today, it is effective to be used. However, the challenge is that today it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line. So any target you set today, the first response of a manager is, okay, this has to happen in 1 year. I don't know where I will be in 1 year, right? So one needs a more focused approach at looking at performance. Balanced scorecard is good at building good health of the organization. You will get what you are trying to get. OKRs is transforming the business. If you are looking at transforming the business, that's when OKRs jump in, and that's when OKRs are most helpful.
Yeah, somewhere I hear the agility and the way the dynamics of business change so fast today that I think OKR becomes very agile for organization and teams to make those pivots as they need to come, right?
Also, what I would like to add, a lot of times we feel, and that's probably the basis of joy of performing, employees sort of lose sight of what am I doing? Because they'll have an annual target and then they figure out this annual target is not going to work. It is not going to be achieved. Hence, I will lose my bonus and I'm not going to going anywhere great. So they lose the interest in doing their work. But when you look at the OKR system, you are live. It's the next 90 days I'm going to work for. Either I succeed or I don't succeed, but it's just 90 days. The next 90 days, I will again work with fresh set of OKRs. So it's a very exciting way of working.
Understood. And last one, is there any book that you recommend the audience for them to read and get more insights on strategy execution, on OKRs, and they can get help and understand this journey more?
The best way to understand or start understanding OKRs is to read John Doerr's book, Measure What Matters. That is the one book I would recommend. The second I would recommend is not a book, but a set of articles or blogs which we have written, which Job has published. So Job has published a white paper. People can reach out. I think that white paper, Gaurav, is a phenomenal set of information which helps people understand what is OKRs and how they can benefit from it. So that white paper is very key. And the playbook that we share, that is also very key in terms of helping people to understand how strategy can be executed through OKRs. So those are the three things. The book.
Absolutely. And, happy to share that with all participants who've registered today and made the time. We will share the OKR playbook as well as the white paper that AK is speaking about, so that you guys can, get some more information and understanding of the space. And yes, I have heard that books, some books give you instant joy. Some books make an impact, but this book, Measure What Matters, actually changed the way I look at my business today. So I'm a big advocate of this. So, well, we have about 30 seconds. So let's say goodbyes to our audience. Thank you so much for taking out the time. We should be back soon, AK. There are certain requests which are coming already about how not to write OKRs and how to write OKRs. So that's a good topic for us to look into the next time.
We will do that.
Thank you, AK. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Nishita.
Thanks for everybody to be here. Thank you very much. Thanks for connecting and thanks, Nishita.